Hello everyone, it's Jen, Scrapbena Creations. I hope you're having a fantastic day. I'm creating some more Sympathy cards. I'm doing a few videos over the next several weeks featuring Sympathy cards, and today I'm going to be talking about mass producing Sympathy cards, but you can also use these techniques or tips for any cards that you're creating. So today I'm going to be using the Color Play Remembrance paper pack. This is specifically for scrapbooking or card making to do with Remembrance or Sympathy. So there's a bonus paper on the back of the cover sheet, which I think is great. And then there's 3 additional patterns double-sided. So you get a total of 6 pattern papers with the different designs. So I'm just showing you here all of the different designs, one to the front and then the back side as well. In terms of my sentiments, I'm going to be using the Honeybee Stamps Honey Cuts, the with Sympathy. Now this has the word die that says Sympathy and Sorry and the shadow dies. I'm also going to be using the Avery with Sympathy stamp set, and then the Simon Says Stamp Sympathy Greetings stamp, which I absolutely love. You can see I've been using these products quite a bit during my Sympathy card mini series here. So I went ahead and stamped all my sentiments. I got some of the die cuts ready in different colors, and I even stamped some of the sentiments on some stitched ovals, some stitched hearts, and also some stitched rectangle scallop dies. These little banner cuts are from the Avery with Sympathy, which I don't think I ended up using, but that's okay. I can keep them for future cards. I also have some of the Simon Says Stamp sentiment strips there at the bottom, and I'm just showing you I used my Catherine Pooler Juniper Mist ink to stamp out my sentiments. It's a really pretty dark blue color. So I find it easiest to use a sketch when mass producing. So this video I'm featuring the SheetLoad of cards. This is the April 2021. It's a Mini Slimline Edition, and this is created by Call Me Crafty Elle. I'll leave all the information in the description box below for the SheetLoad of cards, plus all of the products that I'm using in today's video. So I'm going to show you an alternative. The SheetLoad is created to do mini slimline cards 6 1/4 by 6 1/2. I prefer a 6 by 3 mini slimline. So for my cardstock panels, I'm going to be cutting them at 6 by 3. And then the B panel, which is the smaller size, I'm going to change that from 1 3/4 by 3 1/4 to 1 3/4 by 3. And then for my pattern paper, I'm also going to make those a little bit smaller. So I'm going to be cutting my A size pattern paper by 5 3/4 by 2 3/4 instead of the 6 by 3 that's shown on the sketch. And then for the pattern paper B, I'm going to cut that at 1 1/2 by 3 instead of 1 1/2 by 3 1/4. So to get started with my cutting, I am using my Fiskars trimmer, but I much prefer my Tim Holtz Tonic Guillotine trimmer. And I was a little heavy with my cutting, so I'm shaking the camera here, but that won't continue for long, so sorry for a little bit of shakiness there. But here's where I'm cutting down my pattern paper, the A panels, at 5 3/4 by 2 3/4. And then I will also get a leftover piece here at 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and those will help me make the 3 bonus cards I'm going to show you with this alternative. So stay tuned to the end of the video for those 3 bonus cards. I did use 2 sheets of 12 by 12 pattern paper. I'm just going to show you cutting the first pattern paper, just so you don't have to sit through all that cutting, but you can see just going ahead, doing all my cutting first. So when you do mass production, you want to do everything at the same time. So first start off with the cutting, then if you're doing stamping, do all the stamping at one time, which I did prior to doing all my cutting, and so on. So here's a look at the pattern paper that I cut with you. There's both sides. And here's a look at the second sheet that I did. So you can just see all of the different panels here that I have for my 10 cards. There's the 2 4 1/4 by 5.5 panels for the bonus cards. There's some longer pieces and then a couple of rectangles, and so we will be making 3 cards with those. Now, instead of cardstock, I chose to use some paper. I purchased it from Michael's. It's a Recollections. It's their Spring Pastels, or just pastel, I think, 12 by 12 paper pad. And this blue color went perfectly with the Remembrance collection. So I'm just going to trim these up. These are going to be my card panels. So for size A, instead of cutting it at 6 by 3 inches, I'm actually going to cut these at, instead of cutting them at 6 1/4 by 3 1/4, I'm going to cut them 6 by 3. So this will fill out the full front of my cards. So you can see there my Fiskars trimmer needs a new blade. It's quite frayed at the end. I find I need to replace those blades more than I really get use out of them, so that's why I prefer the guillotine trimmer. It is a self-sharpening trimmer. I do need to get the larger one that will fit the 12 by 12 papers. I also decided I had this one sheet of navy blue cardstock, so I am going to use this for a few of my card panels as well. So here's a look at the 6 by 3 card bases, or card panels, sorry. And now I need to cut the smaller, these are the B papers, and I'm going to cut them at 1 3/4 by 3. So these will be for the little sentiment strips. I didn't actually use a lot of these. I ended up using my own sentiments, so I guess that's another alternative in and of itself, is to not follow the actual sentiment strip. Now, I didn't keep track of the paper here that I used for the backing of my pattern paper. I had a few that were already kind of cut into, so I was just using those up. But I don't think I used any more than what would be suggested in the SheetLoad of Cards supply list. So now I just am going to go ahead and I'm going to put together a couple of the panels here for you so you can see what they look like. So I'm adding that pattern paper panel on top of the blue paper. I'm just going to add a stamp block there just so that it's adhered strongly to the background paper. Once I have these on, I'm then going to add the tinier little strips there that go from the top of the card towards the right-hand side to the bottom. And again, I'll be backing those onto the blue paper. I'm just going to get those into place. I'll add my pattern paper, and I'm just using liquid adhesive for this. I use the Barely Art glue, which is a really strong liquid adhesive. So I'll get these lined up really nicely, and you can see the blue paper just sits on either side of that pattern paper nicely. And once I get these on, then I can go ahead and adhere them to my card panels. So I'm going to use this striped one on the floral pattern paper, and then I'm going to use the, I don't know what this pattern would be considered, but it's almost like a hexagon print, and I'll use that on top of the star or celestial pattern paper. So I'll just get this second one adhered on, and then I'll show you all of the different panels that I created, just different color combinations with the various pattern papers, and keeping in mind that I got all of these variations with using only 2 of the 12 by 12 pattern papers. I think that these cards are great, gender neutral. They can be used for females or males. And so I thought this was a really versatile paper pack for Sympathy cards. So let's move into creating cards number 1 and 2. So I'm using the With Sympathy stamp from the Simon Says Stamp Greeting Mix Sentiments. And this is, I think, the only 2 cards where I used the sentiment cardstock layer there that was noted in the sketch. So I just use that to back my sentiment. And then I'm going to use some of my Honeybee Stamps Holiday Cheer gem stickers. I had some of these left over, but there's really beautiful colors in it that you can use all year long. So there's a look at the first 2 cards. And then moving on to the next set of cards, cards number 3 and 4, I'm going to use the sentiment Forever Remembered, Always Loved. Again, this is from the Simon Says Stamp Greeting Mix Stamp. And I did cut that out with a stitched oval die. And again, to finish this off, I'll just add a few of those gemstones. Moving on to the next card design, I think this one is my favorite. This is cards number 5 and 6. I decided to cut some of that blue pattern paper with a scalloped circle die. And then I'm using the sentiment So Sorry for Your Loss, and I did cut that out with a regular circle die, and that fits nicely in the scallop circle. Again, adding gemstones. I added gemstones to the majority of the cards just for something a little extra. So there's a close-up look of that card design. Moving on to cards number 7 and 8, I'm going to use the Sorry die cut from Honeybee Stamps, and then one of those Sympathy sentiment strips from Simon Says Stamp, and this one reads, Sending Love During This Difficult Time. So another really nice design using the sketch. I love the SheetLoad of cards. I've been seeing a lot of videos with them, and I really wanted to try them out, so this is my first time using it. But I love how you can follow the steps exactly, or you can change them up so that you have variation in your card designs. So again, just adding some of those gems. This time I'm using, it's more of a cloudy white, but it's really pretty because in the light it has almost like a pink reflection in it, so it picks up on the pink in the floral paper. So here's a close-up look at those 2 cards, and then moving on to the next card design, cards number 9 and 10. This one I used a scalloped stitched rectangle. This is from Honeybee Stamps as well. And I stamped the sentiment, Our loved ones are forever close to us in our memories, which is a great sentiment. That Simon Says Stamp Sympathy Greeting Mix stamp, I can't say enough good things about it. I think it has pretty much any kind of sentiment you would want to use for a sympathy card. It even has a thinking of you, which I think is great. So if you're looking for a versatile sympathy stamp, I would definitely recommend that one. So there's a close-up of those cards. Now we can move on to the bonus cards. So here's all the pattern paper that I had left from cutting up my pattern paper with the alternate sizes. So for the 2 first bonus cards, I'm going to use the 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 panels that I had, the rectangle shapes, and then the smaller kind of strips here that I'm going to put towards the bottom. I did decide to back both this strip and the rectangle piece with some of that blue pattern paper that I used in all of my other cards, just to separate it a little bit from the pattern paper on the background panel. So I really love how these came out. I decided to round the corners of the bottoms for both of these cards. And then once I have everything glued in place, I'm going to bring out my sentiments. So for these 2 cards, I'm going to use the Honeybee Stamps die cuts. I'm going to use the word sorry on one and then the word sympathy on the other. You'll see here in a second, I've got everything glued down, so I'm just going to figure out which one I want on which card, and then I'll glue those into place. And then I'm going to add the second part of my sentiment onto those strips at the bottom, and I actually did use the Avery Elle with Sympathy stamp set for those and cut them out with one of my fishtail banner dies. So the first one will read, "Sorry, we are here for you always." And then the sympathy one reads, "Our thoughts and prayers are with you." I really love how this card design turned out, and it's really great to get the most out of your supplies. So super fun to get 3 bonus cards with the alternative to the SheetLoad cards. So there's a close look at that one. Moving on to the final card, the last bonus card. Now I only had 2 of these strips left, so I am going to use my blue paper here as my card panel. So that measures 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And then I'm going to add the 2 strips towards the bottom. So very simple card design, but again, I was able to get these strips onto a card instead of wasting them, and I think that this design is simple yet really pretty. So you can see there that I've stamped out my sentiment, "My heart is with you," on a stitched heart die. So the sentiment actually becomes the focal point for this card with the pretty strips of pattern paper to the back. Now I'm just showing you, you could have this card landscape or portrait. I decided to do a landscape card, and for this one I'm going to pop it up on some fun foam. So I just cut the heart out of some fun foam here with the same die, and I'm going to go ahead and trim that on the stitched line so that you can't see it underneath the cardstock heart with the sentiment. And then I'm just going to adhere that with some double-sided tape. Add some gems here, and that will complete the bonus card for bonus card number 3, which is a total of 13 cards. So I'm going to slow this down and show you all of the 13 cards that I got using the SheetLoad of cards for April 2021. And this is the Mini Slimline Edition, and I'm showing some alternatives here to the SheetLoad for this month. I hope you enjoyed another video featuring some sympathy cards. I will leave a playlist down below in case you want to see more of the sympathy videos that I have created. So thanks everyone for watching. Have a fantastic day, and I'll see you really soon in the next one. Bye!